Hello, writers and crafters. I'm Valerie Ihsan.
And I'm Erick Mertz.
And this is episode 85 of the podcast, and it's September 21st, 2022, as we record this. Today, our topic is spousal or partner support for us writers. We had a couple of comments on the episodes, and I don't have them pulled up right now.
Oh, no.
So I
Well,
can't read them. But we did have some lovely comments, and we really appreciate them. It makes me smile every time I get a comment. So please keep sending them. And when I'm better organized, I will read them out on the podcast.
we'll just read double next time, right?
We'll read double next time. Yes. Our podcast is sponsored by patreon.com/Valerie Ihsan, IHSAN. And the WriterCraft retreat tickets are going to be going on sale November 1st, unless you are a patron, and then you can buy them now and at a discount. So for as low as $1 a month, you can get that Patreon discount and start your monthly payments now, which make it a very affordable retreat. Any announcements on your end, Eric?
Nothing special, really. It's been kind of a normal writing week, I guess. Just plugging away on some of the similar things. Actually, kind of in an odd business update, I had a prospective client, not even a signed on client, text yesterday. Somebody that I was in the process of negotiating with, and he said, "Hey, I just got on a flight. I'm getting on a flight to Portland. I'd like to meet you before we get started." And I was like, usually I talk on the phone with people once or twice before we do this part of things. So the whole client courtship thing just took a real big jump forward. And so this afternoon I'm going to meet a prospective client. And we'll see how that goes.
That's exciting.
It
you look
is
a little trepidatious.
Okay, so I don't want to seem overly pragmatic about how I do things, but I have. Okay, so I guess I guess I'm very pragmatic about this now that I'm thinking through it. There is a process, right? There's the email contact. There's usually some phone contact. Usually there's a contractual agreement that says we're going to work together before we all start committing major time and money to a project that's just kind of how I do business. This person is voluntarily, he's an adult, so I guess he can spend his money however he wants to, but just flew out to Portland without the assurance that it's actually going to be a match. And it's like dating. I'm sure there's there's progression before you get to the hey, let's go to a weekend festival together. You don't just drop that before you have any real phone contact. So it feels like we're jumping in at the deep end, but I've had projects that have been deep enders and they've worked really well. We're going to a cool restaurant this afternoon, so I guess
if nothing else,
if nothing else,
I'll get some meal.
If nothing else, I'll get some screen door, which is good, which is great food. But yeah, so that's kind of big. And there's just in that business sense, in my ghostwriting world, there's September, January are the two big months. It's when kids go back to school, I think people stop thinking about doing projects and then they start doing them. And then I think New Year's with the resolution is a business boost for me. And just like clockwork, as soon as September hit, it was I got busy. It's I'm flooded with inquiries. So that's great because that's kind of dictates the business year. But yeah, there's somebody in Portland right now waiting to meet me, and I didn't really plan that. It's also just from a planning point of view, Wednesday's my big in the desk day working on client things. And so I guess I'm spending my Wednesday at the screen door, which is great, but I'm just not going to get much client work done today. So,
well, it's a different client of work. You're still meeting a client. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you? I have been, I was going to say getting ready to go to Turkey, but that's a lie. I haven't done anything to get ready for it.
You're
And
not
it
packed. You don't
started,
have.
no, I made a
You don't have your
list.
clothes. Have you looked at the weather in Istanbul? Do you know if it's going to
Yes.
be warmer?
Yes, I
Okay,
did look at the weather and I did
that's a big
make a
deal when you're
list.
packing.
Yeah, and I did make a list. So at least that part's done. But at
You
least I
made
have
a list. I
I have
love
a
that
list.
planner in you, Val. Like you haven't done it. I love it. I love it. The suitcase isn't down from the closet, but I got a list.
Well, yeah. So I am a little behind in what's comfortable for me, but Ellie's out of town right now at a work
Mm.
thing, and so that has thrown my week out of alignment. And my dogs have been sick, strangely,
Oh no.
totally different things and different dogs, and so that's been worrisome. And I'm covering a bunch of extra shifts at the bookstore for someone else who's on vacation so that they will cover mine while I'm on vacation.
Got it. Oh man. This sounds like.
So, yeah, there's
Sorry I
just a
brought it
lot
up.
of extra stuff going on,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm working on my author website. So that is, my manuscript is at the editor, so now I'm doing all that back end stuff, and that's what I've been working on most recently is the new author website.
Very cool.
What are you reading?
I this is I don't know what has happened to my reading pace, but I just finished Death Masks yesterday. I've been reading that book for 16 days. That's just way slower than I normally read a book. I love that about Goodreads too. When you go to add your book to the thing and it shows you like when you said you started reading it. So then even though you're reading it slow, you're reading slow, and then you get on there to log the book and you're like, oh, now I'm really reminded of the actual day I started and the day I finished are way further apart. So I just picked up, actually this morning before we had our podcast, I just picked up out of my shelves The Yard by Alex Grecian. I've kind of wanted to read this. This is like a Victorian murder mystery type of thing.
Ooh,
It deals with Jack the Ripper in London and some
Gre
Scotland Yard type of stuff.
that sounds awesome. Grecian as in Grecian.
IAN.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and this is kind of it's a series of books that I've had. Interestingly, I've had a bunch of people recommend it, say it's great, and then I've had an almost equal number of people say it's not that great. So for that reason alone, I feel like I want to be able to read it and pick out, what is it that those people loved and what could they have, what would turn people off to it. I kind of like that exercise, just
Mhm.
books that have some controversy to them in the fan base. What about you? What are you reading?
Um, so I'm reading a book called The Confessions of a Bookseller. It's a diary, really, I guess, of a
Hmm.
Scottish bookstore owner, and and it's quaint and it's fun and it's identifiable, like there isn't an overarching theme or there's no like
Right,
plot really, but it's still interesting reading because I really see myself in his life, you know what I
right.
mean? Like I recognize the customers that come in and talk to him because the same kind come in and talk to us. So that's interesting. But I think it's going to become a book that I read adjacent to another book, because
Yeah,
it's like I said, there's no plot or anything. I'm just reading
right,
what
right.
January's book sales are like and blah blah blah. So the two that I have on my list, I've started carrying them with me now. Like I haven't quite started reading them because I've got that other book, the Confessions book,
They've
but
graduated to
but
the
they've
handbag.
they've
Yeah.
graduated to the bag.
Okay.
So that is an arc called the Cloisters, which I'm really excited about. Kind of a magical realism sort of thing. So that looks good. And then PriestDaddy is a memoir that won a bunch of awards in 2017, and I never got around to reading it. So that is those are the two that I think I will be reading, probably like, on the airplane, because we've got a giant time on the airplane.
What
If
is the
I'm
flight
not
to?
sleeping, then I will
Right.
be reading.
So what is the flight? So you get in on a plane, probably in Portland, right?
We're actually going to leave out of Eugene. So we're going to
Whoa.
fly from Eugene to, I've got 2 flights scheduled, one to Turkey, and then we're going to Costa Rica in January. And they're actually blending in my head right now. So I can't remember which place we go to from Eugene. It's either Seattle or it's Denver. I can't remember which
Okay.
one's
And then
which.
what do
And
you
then
like
from
hit?
Denver, we go to Frankfurt, and then from Frankfurt to Istanbul.
Got it. That makes sense. My brother-in-law, my wife's brother, is a big Turkish scholar, and I think I recall he knows a lot about like Germans. It might be Frankfurt that he flies through a lot when he goes out there. So interesting. Have fun out there. I turned down my wife and I turned down a trip to Turkey when he was in there in Istanbul for a year doing research, and my wife's mother was like, "Hey, we're gonna go out for a month. Why don't you guys come out?" And we had just gotten married. We were just like settling kind of thing. It was just not the time to take another, that much time off. And I kind of regret it because you can still see some of those pictures of in my head. Like, I wish I was there. So
I'm going to post a whole bunch more pictures in anticipation for this Turkish trip. I posted all of the pictures that I took last year on Facebook just recently because I
I think I saw that.
somehow
Yeah.
hadn't, I didn't know how that. I think I had posted them, but they were never in an album, so they were just
Right.
uploaded or whatever. So I wanted them all in an album. But hey, I had one other quick little announcement about Patreon. I added a benefit to the first dollar tier. I want to send postcards like in the mail. I want to send actual mail. We have a lot of cool postcards at the bookstore and I never know what to do with them.
Oh,
And
that's
so I want to send postcards to our patrons. So if you already are a patron, please message me your address so I can
oh,
mail it to you. And if you want a postcard from me, then you
that
can
is so
become
cool.
a
I
patron.
want that. I used to be part of this thing called Post Crossing. I don't know if you ever saw that. It was this early internet thing where it was just it was a bank of people, and you would like hit click and it would give you a person somewhere in the world. You'd send them a postcard, and then every time you sent a postcard it would randomly send someone your address, and it wasn't the same person. So I would click and it would be like I'd send someone a postcard in West Virginia, and then 2 weeks later I'd get a postcard from someone in Tokyo. And so I have this box. I got really addicted to it. I was sending like 2 or 3 a week because it was what you'd get back was so weird, just weirdly random,
Uh-huh.
like, and you'd always ask like what do you want to hear from people? And so I just like I had this like list of like last thing you ate, last book you read, place you really want to go, and you'd get these really weird, things from people. It was great. I wish
Awesome.
that was like early internet things were so innocent and sweet. There would just be
Except for the
these like
chain
sites.
mail. Do you remember the chain mail?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They always
Just
tried to like guilt you into if you stop this chain, then something bad will happen to your
7 years
family.
bad luck on your seventh offspring. Something really like Disney would happen to you. Okay.
Okay. Speaking of family,
Speaking
let's
of family.
talk about who has receptivity to your work. And, do you have support at home? And if you do, are you grateful for it? I just mean, are you communicating that gratitude?
Right.
If you don't have that support at home, maybe why not? And is there something you can do about it? So that's kind of the conversation that I wanted to start talking about today
And I
because,
think we should hit on whether or not it's vital. It's important.
ooh,
Some
good
people want
point.
it. Some people might not want it, not care. Um, but yeah.
So I have support from my husband and my friends, they all and my family, they all think it's cool that I'm an author, that I'm a writer and I do get encouragement from Ali, he reminds me, not he doesn't remind me to write, but I mean, he checks in every once in a while like how's the book going, that sort of thing. So that's nice. Um, I have had conversations with him about the business side of writing, and that doesn't interest him so much. So we've
Mm,
discovered that he's not a sounding board for business conversations. Um, and actually, this is sort of, um, I think this was really important to me to learn, and I learned it like in 2017, and this really opened up my ability to well, it didn't make me a better writer, but it made me a more comfortable writer. And that was,
mm.
my husband is not my target reader. So once I
Yeah,
realized that I won't write anything that he will like to read, it really helped me not worry so much when I was writing, because I would have this inner editor as I was writing, and I just would feel like this isn't something that he would like, and I want to write something that he would want to read. And, by the time I realized, actually, that's not, he's not the market. I'm going to write to the readers that want to
right,
read my stuff, and
right,
he's not one of them. And that's totally okay. That doesn't mean he's not supportive,
right.
but I'm not going to expect him to read anything that I write. Now, the memoir that he's in, he wants to read.
Of course, yeah,
But, none of the fiction that I write is really going to be his jam. So,
right.
um, so
Makes sense.
that's, I don't have to feel bad about that at all. That
I
doesn't mean
don't
he's
think so,
not
no.
supportive.
Yeah, it's a little different. I mean, yeah, I'm listening. The whole time thinking about this topic, like how I would address it, because I think, my situation is, my situation is different because work is, there's not like, I don't go to work at the factory and then come home and write. And so when we have a conversation about work, it's a little bit more like, it's for me, it's a lot harder to put the author side of my business into those conversations, because it is still to me somewhat abstract. I mean, I don't make, I make a nice dinner every month on authoring, and part of that is just where I'm at, like, just I don't have the bookshelf yet. I don't have it positioned the way yet to do that. So it's a little harder. We talk, you know, with a little kid in the house. It's a lot more of our focus goes on to him, and it's like when we find time to talk about work, it's a lot more like, just catch me up, get me kind of where you're at. And I think what my wife Lisa is more interested in, it's the relationships. The this
That you have with your clients?
Yeah, it's a little more like, this whole saga today of, client client texts me out of the blue from an airport. Guess what? That type of relationship type of building, and how that goes is kind of more what she's interested in. It's like what more engages her in the conversation. She's a massage therapist, worked a long time in social work and restaurants, and I think she's, if I were to sort of peg her mentality, she's a very much a relationship person. But I think it's a little abstract to her, this idea of like, if I say, like, I got the seed of the idea for the story here, and it germinated here, and it became this, and then I rewrote it to that, like, that would fascinate some people. Probably people whose work is more long tail, takes in the development thing. But for her, I think it's just a little more about the relationships, what things are like. And I'll say, I will write two memoirs one day, and one of them is going to be my memoir of being a ghostwriter, because I have met some of the most fascinating, interesting, bar conversation worthy people over the last 15, 20 years. It's wild. She loves that. She's met some of those people, and she's, whoa, she'll be in that memoir too for a couple of them. So yeah, and I am I get a lot of the support for the author side of things from my kid. Like, we went to
Mhm.
back to school night last night, and he introduced me to all of his teachers, and it's like, my daddy's a writer, and he was like super proud of it at the
Aw.
library. I got the look from the librarian, like, oh yeah.
What do you
It was,
got?
yeah, we have, yeah. Um, and so he's kind of in that more like fascinated. You know, he'll come down when he says goodbye on most mornings. He's like, "What are you working on? I've got all
Mhm.
my handwriting noting here," and he's super into that. So I think you kind of have to find a balance. Like you have to. This is a big abstract thing, or it's a business thing, and it's a relationship thing. You have to find out sort of what the people in your life are motivated by or interested in, because you can't force I can't force feed my wife love of the process.
No, and that's why once I discovered that Ali was not interested in the business side of, my work, then I stopped having conversations with him about that. That's gonna be, you know, you or my author community at the
Right.
Author Life or something like that. And it's fun for me to talk shop with other writers. But I think that if you need I guess what I wanted this episode also to address is
Sure.
that some families, I mean, authors make money, but as freelancers, we talked about the side hustle before, the author services. Freelancing is always fraught with like feast or famine.
Oh yeah.
And writing a novel can take years.
Right.
And then, book sales trickle in, it's very possible that you can spend years writing several books and not really make an income that is something that you can live on. So the spousal support at home, the partner
Yeah.
support has to incorporate okay, I'm not actually going to make any money on this for a while. Are you okay
Right.
with that? And I guess that brings me to the thing I think that is vital, and that's communication. So
Right.
if you want support from your spouse or your partner, knowing what kind of support you want is crucial. So if that looks like, babe, I need you to take the kids on Saturday morning because I'm going to write for 4 hours. You work full time Monday through Friday. That's your only
Right.
day that you write. So that means the kid has to go away, or I'm going to the cafe to write, or, whatever. You're on kid duty. That's the kind of support that I need from you. Can you do that? Having a conversation like that, yeah, or Ali's also a writer. He's a technical writer for a biotech company, and he has projects too. And he has deadlines that someone else has set for him. And so sometimes if he's on a deadline crunch, he'll communicate that to me and say, "Oh, I've got to work nights this week because I've got to turn this in by Friday. And, I still have maybe 6 hours left. I estimate that I need." And so then I know, okay, this evening I'm going to be on my own. I'm going to make my own dinner, and he's just going to do his thing and I'm going to do my thing. So not communicating that causes
Right.
what's going on? Why aren't you done working yet?
Right.
So the
And I was
communication's key.
yeah, and I was bad at that in the beginning, because I think honestly, looking back at it now, like I think there's like an inverse relationship between the amount of support you need and where you are in your journey. I think when you're in the beginning and writing is this uncertain thing and it's growing, you need the most support, because you are. I actually had this conversation with my wife like a few weeks ago. It's like, because what I did is I went back and I'm gone through like all my files, and I've started tossing some things like I'm never coming back to that idea, or this is, and it felt a little, it hurt a little bit, because I realized my
Mm,
wife had given me so much space and time to create stuff that I was never going to use, that it just, I don't know, just hurt. Like I was throwing away her goodwill, it felt like.
mm, I
And,
I think
but I
that,
reckon
yeah.
it, yeah, it's not that. I mean, that was like the immediate, like, pang of ache that I had when I was throwing away some of those old files. Um, but I think early on, I think, yeah, it's really important, because you are asking out of that important stuff, that like, hey, I can't have date night on Thursday night because I really want to, I feel motivated, or Saturday morning, take the kids. Those kind of things you're asking out of big, for important time, hopefully creating something worthwhile. But I think it's, look, we're human beings, we're diverse creatures, and I think whether it's and I always think of golf. I drive past a golf course often because there's one near my house, and I think that's just somebody's 3 hour on the weekend thing, and that person's partner, spouse, life has to accommodate that. So I think that as long as you're communicating, like, hey, I need this time to do this, and then you're paying it forward by giving that person the space and the time to do whatever their thing is, or taking them out for a nice dinner because they gave you the time, and that I think there's a way to circulate, like keep that all
That's
moving
a really
forward,
good
getting that
idea. Yeah, especially if you're not getting the support. Maybe there's a little bit of snarkiness coming back, or disbelief that, or this is just a hobby, or, oh, that little thing that you do, or, like it could be condescending maybe. I don't know what the situation is of the listeners, but if that's the case, then what you just said, I think could go a long way for
right,
the reciprocity of like, hey, I'll give you, if you give me this night for writing, then, you can have poker night with the guys, or I don't know,
right.
whatever. I'm being really
I think that's a
stereotypical right now.
relationship. That's a relationship in a nutshell, though, right? I mean,
Mhm.
my wife's going camping this weekend. She's with her friends. That's going to put me on kid duty from, Friday afternoon to Sunday afternoon, which isn't a big deal. I mean, it sounds like it's a big deal, but it's really not. But it's still an ask. And so I think those asks, just you have to sort of know when you've banked an ask, and make
Mhm.
sure that when you're owed one, you take it.
Yeah.
Don't miss out on your partner's goodwill, because that's part of trust too. But then also you have to you give and take, give and take. You said something though that I think is important, and I think I don't want to get into I don't think you want to get into this topic either, of like toxicity and when it goes bad. Like, we don't need to
Mhm.
go there. But I think especially when you're early on in process of taking on something creative, that labeling of what it is, that whole just a hobby thing puts it in the, well, it's not important. And it's, why are we giving up this time for just a hobby? And anytime you put that, like,
Mhm.
two words, it's just
Caveat.
a,
Mhm.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
just a
Just
hobby, just a hobby in front of it, or it's just something she does. I think that's where there's that, like, that higher level communication probably needs to come in. Like, that to me is like, when you let someone define something that you're doing in terms that aren't honoring it, I think it's time to you have to take back some of that narrative. You probably should talk about it, because
Yeah.
it
And
might be a
even just
hobby
saying
now.
like, yeah, this is important to me, whether it's a hobby or not, it's important to me. And I need to carve out time in my week to do this in order to be authentic and to,
Right.
feed
It's
my
my
soul.
humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're talking about multiple pursuits of labors of love, right? I mean, your partners are the people we marry or partner up with or what have you, it's a labor of love. It takes work, and you do it because you love it, and you do it because it feeds back. And writing should be that too. And I think if there's a harmony between those things, they'll coexist. I think to me, that's what like, my work has to coexist with my life, because I can really let this get out of hand. It
Mm.
could I could spend a lot more time down here than I do,
Mhm.
and so I have to remind myself, like, I'll it's not probably the best thing for my whole life if I really do get that extra 2 hours on a Thursday night. So I should be
Yeah.
reading, because it took me 2 weeks to finish a darn 350-page book. Actually, if I get that extra 2 hours, I need to be reading. Sorry, Jim Butcher, the book is great. It was great, but it's like I didn't finish it anyway.
Yeah, I think communication, I think knowing yourself and what you
Yeah,
need is the first step.
in
And
everything,
in
but
everything,
especially this.
yeah.
Yeah,
So where you are in your author journey, are you the new baby writer? Are you just, trying to go to a critique group once a week so that you can have pages workshopped, so that you can get the camaraderie of being around other writers, and it's kind of like the accountability of getting something written, every
right.
week. Um, maybe that's, a one night a week at the cafe that you're meeting with other writers, and that's what you're communicating. This is what I need in my writing life right now. This is going to help me keep writing. When else during the week when can I fit it into my week around my family life and work and the other obligations and responsibilities? And knowing where you personally are struggling, is it, do you need someone to like actually talk plot with you? Like, do you need story ideas? Are you trying to talk with another writer about what should happen next, or this character stuck doing this? Is it that kind of conversation that you need? Do you need help knowing, is this story any good? Who can you reach out to that can read the story? Is it an editor that you need? So knowing what you need, where you are in your writer's journey, and then figuring out who you can ask for that support. And
Right.
is there support that you need from home, from the non-writer part of your family?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I always think of that Stephen King. Stephen King and Tabitha King
Mm-hmm.
are, the classic. Like she reads everything he does. She pulls manuscripts out of the garbage. I don't know if anybody knows the story. She pulled the
Carrie?
manuscript for Carrie out of the garbage because he was frustrated with it, and she saw the value. Um,
She
I
also
mean, not
helped
every
him get started writing again after his accident.
right, right,
She
and
set
she's
up the little space so that he could be in a more comfortable setup with his back pain. And
yeah, and so there's that side of things. And I always think of what Diana Gabaldon said at the Willamette Writers. Like, she just needed her husband to get out of the way. She just needed, and it was played for a laugh, but I actually took the note as like, she's serious. She knew what this story was. She knew what her relationship was, and she just needed him to fall asleep on the couch every night so she could go and write the book. And I don't think there's anything wrong with either one of those. I think if Diana Gabaldon tried to force what Stephen King had and vice versa, it wouldn't have worked for either one of them. It's just, there's a harmony that you'll find, um, if you're looking for it, and you're being, if you're in the spirit of harmony. I'm stuttering like crazy, but like, if you're looking for it, like what works for you and your partner, you'll find it. If you're just looking for it for you, you probably won't find it.
right.
It's got to work for everyone.
And, of course, nobody can read your mind. And
No,
especially the non-writers don't
however loud your
understand.
thoughts sound, they can't read your mind.
And the non-writers just don't understand what is involved in creating story. And
They
and so
probably
you
don't
have to
want to
be
know either,
yeah,
unless
it
they
doesn't.
ask.
Yeah. But I just mean, again, like, if you know what you need, fall asleep on the couch, dude, so I can write this thing. If you
Right.
know what you need, then you can communicate that with your
Then go get it.
partner. Mm-hmm.
I think something that keeps coming to mind, I think a mistake that I made early on, because I knew this was a career path for me one way or another. I think tying up support from a partner in any sort of practical payoff in the end is a really awful idea, right? And I
Explain
think
that. What does that mean? I don't know what you mean.
so. Like, I think I got a lot of buy-in from Lisa really early on, because I said, look, this is going to be my career. Here are all the things that this thing is going to bring, because I could project like, oh
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm eventually going to teach at conferences, and that'll get us little weekend vacations, and like, I could just see this thing.
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of like, buy into me because I'm going to do this, buy
Mm-hmm.
into me because I'm going to do that. And I think that it speaks to confidence, which is fine because I was confident. But I think it also, at times of stress, it puts the stress like, well, you haven't gotten us
Mm-hmm.
this yet, or this hasn't made that money yet, or this isn't, we haven't done a book signing yet. Like, it's those, I think those future payoffs, especially when you're baby writer at that stage, are just, keep those in your head. To me,
Mm-hmm.
like, I wish I would have kept that in my head and made it more about, this is going to make me a whole person, and
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a whole person for you. Would have been a far better approach to this than was like
That's interesting. Yeah.
promising career out of it. Um, even though the career paid off, you know, and I'm ascending in that way, it's like I
Mhm.
still feel like, man, I wish I wouldn't have promised this, because it would have, you know, this is the payoff instead of something more intangible. And you know, something intangible feels like more what I would strive for at this point if I could go back.
So we would like to hear from you if you
Please.
have support at home, what that looks like, and if you have any tips for getting what you need as a writer from the support system around you, whether that's a spouse or a family member or your writing community. That would be interesting. So
I'd
drop
love
us
to
a
know.
line.
Yeah,
Yeah. Drop
it's
us
not
a
an easy
line.
topic.
You can
But
email us
something you said,
direct. You can email us direct from at writercraftpodcast@gmail.com, or you can go to valerieihsan.com/podcast-news and leave a comment on the episode.
and don't forget what Val said earlier. I loved what you said about there's people in your family that think it's cool that you do
Mhm.
this. If that is a great, I think don't shy away from that. Even if you are just baby writering and you're 10,000 words into your book and you already regret your opening scene, whatever your relationship to your writing is, if people in your world think it's cool, then it's cool, and
Mhm.
just run with it. Like
Yeah.
use that to like, I have two of my friends are just fascinated by this. This is what I do. I do not dissuade them of that fascination. I will not unplug their. I saw them this weekend and they were just buzzy about. I'm like, be buzzy about it. I love you guys. You know, you have to have that. You know, and it doesn't. Some of these things don't require explanation, or you don't need to. They don't need to justify it. If you love it and it's cool to you, it's cool to them. Run with it.
Yeah.
Just do it. Don't question fan mail. There was something, I just watched an interview with Nicolas Cage. This was great. Nicolas Cage had this quote that um, I'm going to take on. He says, "Never question applause.
Never questionable.
Never question applause. Just run with it." And I thought that's great. Unburden yourself of having to worry about why someone thought something was great. You know, relish it and keep going,
Right
because you're
on.
doing something that works.
Very cool. What a nice thing to end on. Never
Positive, baby.
question
Got to be
applause.
positive.
Got to be
Never
positive.
question it.
All right. Thanks so much for joining me this week.
Oh, my pleasure.
And I will be traveling for the next couple of weeks. So
We're going to come up with
we're
the
gonna,
next week's
yeah.
podcast will not look like this podcast or sound like it. We haven't figured out what it's going to be yet, but it'll be worth your time when you see it come up.
Right on.
Right?
Sounds perfect.
Right.
Thanks so much. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.